Time references. Okay, so let's get started. So here we have Abby and her grandpa. They're looking at a family album as Abby asks questions about the history of her grandparents. So let's listen to their conversation.
Oh my gosh, is that you and Grandma?
Oh golly, I sure do remember this one. This is one of the first dates your grandmother and I had.
You guys are so young. When did you meet?
Well, let me see here. That had to be during the 40s, I guess. That's right, we met after high school in 1941.
Oh, and is this you when you were in the Army?
That's right. This is me right before the war broke out in Europe.
And how long were you in the Army for?
Well, let me see. I enlisted in the Army after high school, and I got out after the war ended. So I was there from 1942 to 1945. So I guess I was there for 3 years total.
And you and Grandma stayed together the whole time you were gone?
That's right. I wrote a letter to her every day until we were back together. 60 years ago, we didn't have those text messages or stuff like that these days.
Is this your wedding day? Oh my gosh, Grandma looks so pretty.
Yeah, she sure was a looker back then.
When did you get married?
We got married in January of 1946.
Wow, so how long have you been together?
Let me think here. We've been together since 1941, so we've been together for about 70 years.
Oh, that is so romantic. And who is this? That's not Mom, is it?
Ah, it sure is. And that's your Aunt Rita holding her. Boy, I remember that day. We all went to the park to have a picnic, and then I got a headache.
Okay guys, so after watching the video, we're going to look at the grammar today. And our grammar today is time references, or referring to time. We have many different words that we use to refer to time. So let's start over here. When we talk about years, specific years, or even time periods, we use in and during. So, for example, Abby asked her grandpa, "When did you meet Grandma?" And her grandpa said, "We met during the 1940s. So if we look at during, that's talking about, it's referring to time. And in this context, it's a time period. So oftentimes we use during or in to talk about a time period, right? The 1940s. Not very specific. He also said, "We met in 1941. So we use in to also talk about specifically when, in which year specifically. And we can also use during for the specific year. All right, so remember, in and during we use for specific years and general time periods. Let's look over here. When we talk about actions that are still happening now, but for example, they started at some time in the past, we talk about this using since and for. So Abby asked the question, how long have you been together? Right? Well, if we look at this graph, we can see that here we are now, today, and the grandma and the grandpa, they are still together. But in the past, they started dating, they started to be together. Their relationship started here in 1941. And that's 70 years total from 1941 to now. So we can use these two in different ways. We use since to talk about the starting point. So for example, 1941 is when they started. So we could use since for that. Or we can think about the duration is 70 years. So we use for the duration of time, right? So the question is, how long have you been together? And the grandpa said, we've been together since 1941. Now let's look at this specific grammar. You remember this is the present perfect, so that's using the auxiliary have and the past participle, right? And when we use this combined with since, that means that they are still together, right? But it started in the past. It started in 1941. So we say we've been together since 1941. We could use for in the same sentence, and we can say we've been together for 70 years. Again, 70 years is a duration of time, and that's why I'm using for with this one. Now again, I'm still using the same grammar, that present perfect, to indicate that this action started in the past, but it's still continuing. It's still happening today. So let's look at this one over here, the amount of time in a past. So when we want to talk about the amount of time in the past that something happened, we use that amount of time and the word ago, right? So if I'm talking about now, but I want to talk about something that happened in the past, I could say 60 years ago, or 200 years ago, or even 1 week ago, right? To talk about how long in the past something happened. So his example was 60 years ago, we didn't have texting, okay? So again, referencing how many years in the past something happened, or in this case, something didn't happen. Okay, let's look over here. When we want to talk about when something started and ended, we have a start and end point. We use from and the time, and then to, and again the time. So, for example, Abby asked her grandpa, when were you in the army? Right? And he was remembering, and he said, I was in the army from 1942 to 1945, right? So that means he started in the army in 1942, and he finished in the army in 1945. So he used from and to indicate when it started and when it ended. And remember, we can use this for anything. We could use about a time, as in, I have class from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, right? So we use this in any type of context, and here we're just using it in years. Okay, guys, so that's the grammar for today, time references. Remember, we use in and during to talk about specific years and time periods. We use since and for to talk about the duration or maybe the starting point of an action that started in the past but that continues to today, right? We use ago to reference how long in the past something happened, right? And we use from and to indicate when something started and when something ended. All right, guys. So I hope this was helpful, and good luck with the rest of the grammar, and thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Okay.